Coming up on Lawmakers. The House passes a measure that would increase fees on international wire transfers made by illegal immigrants. The Georgia Water Coalition says legislation to decrease stream buffer zones will affect water quality. And the Senate passes a House bill that would give parents a tax break for child care. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, Gerald Bryant and Wandy Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. Also on Lawmakers, a fire-resistant cigarette becomes the focus of safety legislation.
And we talk with the Senate majority and minority whips about legislative priorities. But our lead story tonight, the House votes to add fees to international wire transfers. That measure adopted by the House today would add a 5% surcharge to international money transfers made by illegal immigrants. Supporters of the measure said taxing the nearly $1 billion wired from Georgia to Mexico each year will help to cover the cost of services provided to undocumented workers, especially indigent health care. Opponents argued that the money would be placed in the general fund and not necessarily directed to these services. Here's a sample of today's debate, beginning with bill sponsor Representative Tom Rice.
If you go to a emergency room on Saturday night, you go to school during the week, you happen to be in the court when criminal cases are being tried, you see an opportunity for overload in almost every one of those areas by class sizes, at least in Gwinnett County, by the number of people receiving services throughout this state, by a people group who are here industriously working to better themselves, but a group that is here illegally.
I'm probably the only hourly worker in this place. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm not going to let you sit here and think that adding a tax to a person's wages because you say that they didn't pay taxes when they got their money from an employer who paid them that money and did not go by Georgia state law and take taxes out.
What we're about to do is tax people who are doing the best that they can to provide for their families. And I've got a moral problem with that, and I've got a problem with the fact that I'm afraid that we're about to move down piecemeal immigration reform when what we really need is meaningful immigration reform at the federal level from our Republican Congress and our Republican Senate.
Many of you know I've chaired the Immigration Reform Caucus for 3 years, and many of you are going to say this is a federal issue. It is a federal issue, but the federal government doesn't care about our local issue because the bills are paid locally, and it's your taxpayers who are paying those bills. It is your students of your taxpayers who are denied access to schools or to health care because someone else is sitting in that seat in the emergency room and you can't get in the door. And you know what? It's your taxpayers who are paying every penny of it.
Leading wire transfer provider Western Union issued a statement today saying that it appreciated the challenges faced by the state of Georgia, but that, quote, Western Union's chief concern is that the bill as it stands today may create more obstacles than benefit. House Bill 1238 passed 106-60 with 2 amendments to specify the types of acceptable identification. It now moves to the Senate.
The Georgia Water Coalition wants to stop a Senate bill they say would reduce pollution buffer size in the state. Senate Bill 510 is sponsored by Senator Chip Pearson. He says he is standing up for property owners' rights. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman joins us live with more on that story. Jesse.
Well, Gerald, Senator Chip Pearson says Senate Bill 510 is necessary because property owners in his North Georgia district are not able to build on their land. He says the 150-foot buffers that the Environmental Protection Division has set are too large.
The Georgia Water Coalition says they want to protect pollution buffers around streams in the state. They say reducing those buffers harms those streams and Georgians.
From the mountains to our reefs off the barrier islands, these are worth fighting for. And remember, no rollbacks on water quality.
They say Senate Bill 510 would limit those buffers permanently at 25 feet.
Currently, 25 feet is the state minimum, and local jurisdictions and in certain cases the Environmental Protection Division are able to establish larger buffers if that particular water body needs more protection or if the local government simply wants more protection in their jurisdiction.
Senator Chip Pearson sponsors SB 510.
This is a property rights initiative to recognize and respect the buffer owners. Everybody's got a voice in this, the clean water folks, the fish people, of which I'm one, but somebody's got to be a voice for the buffer owners.
Senator Seth Harp says he may have a solution to the buffer protection issue.
I strongly urge, and we'll introduce legislation later, that will give a tax break such that if we do have a taking for a buffer, that there is an appropriate tax break that is given to landowners to make certain that they have something analogous to our conservation land use, which has been very successful.
And Senator Seth Harp did not indicate exactly when he would drop that tax break legislation. Also, Senator Pearson says he is willing to hear more from any group about this bill. He says he has not had any conversations with anyone from the Georgia Water Coalition at this point. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
In other news, the state Senate agrees with the House. Georgia parents should have a tax credit for child care expenses. Senator Casey Cagle explains House Bill 1080.
One of the joys that all of us have in this Senate over the years is trying to make sure that Georgia families are protected and that we can show our support for what goes on in the family each and every day. And one of those, obviously, is addressing the pocketbook. Today, this bill will bring $40 to $50 million to working parents to help cover the cost of child care. The Georgia credit will add $50 to $150 in tax relief per year per family, depending on their child care claims and income level.
House Bill 1080 passed 50-0 and goes to the governor for his signature.
Georgia retail stores may soon be required to sell a safer cigarette, at least in terms of fire safety. Senator Don Balfour sponsors Senate Bill 487, which prohibits the sale of cigarettes that do not meet the new fire safety standards. David Zelski joins us live from the Capitol with more. David.
Well, and Wandy, these safety cigarettes have special rings on them that stop the cigarette from burning unless they are inhaled. 4 states have passed similar legislation, but the arguments about the statistics vary. Primarily results from the first state to pass this law, New York. The Senate Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee heard from spokesmen of R.J. Reynolds and GASP, Georgians Against Smoking Pollution, and their opinions conflicted.
What's happened in New York, that trend has stopped, and now there's been some increase. They reported that the year before there were 2,105 careless smoking fires. The year before, during the year that the regulations took effect, the number declined by 3 to 2,102.
We're going to have a baseline of cigarette-caused fires every year, and we can do something about lowering the number of people who die in cigarette fires. A Canadian study found that 40% of fire deaths are not the smokers. They're innocent people.
Senator Balfour later answered to concerns that these new cigarettes are actually more toxic.
It's kind of ironic, if you ask me, if the tobacco industry is going to suggest that this becomes a more dangerous product. The product's dangerous to begin with. You heard the American Cancer Society talk about the fact that there's the top 15 carcinogens in this cigarette have no change, and it's on a smaller level and an insignificant amount of change on that.
Now, most of the speakers said this is a measure that should be handled at a federal level. However, Balfour added that when measures like this pass at a state level, Congress takes notice. Senate Bill 487 now awaits a committee vote. Reporting live, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
Well, we are almost at the midway point of this General Assembly session. Today I talked with Senate Majority Whip Mitch Seabaugh to get his assessment of what's been accomplished so far.
I think we had a very successful session. We've been very efficient in what we've tried to do. We got off to a real good fast start and taking some major legislation and getting it passed. We're moving bills through the committee process in a timely manner, and I think we're doing a real good job of being on time to get out of here by the end of March.
There are several high-profile issues still to be dealt with on both sides before they potentially become law. What do you think is going to happen with the eminent domain situation?
Well, of course, the governor came forth with his proposal, and so we'll take that. They'll take that over in the House, and they'll start going through the process of evaluating section by section, and it'll go through the process of possibly certain amendments of what people would like to have put into it, and it'll come to the Senate. And I think at the end of the day, when we get done with the session, we'll have a very, very good bill that will protect the rights of property owners in the state of Georgia.
There is a volatile issue yet to be handled, and that is there are some immigration bills out there. We already saw some rallies over the weekend on the pro and the con side. Your evaluation of what's going to happen with immigration?
Well, Senator Chip Rogers has come out with, I think, a very good bill that basically deals with the issue of penalizing business owners that will exploit illegal immigrants in their employment by not allowing tax deductions for payments paid to them, also requiring verification of citizenship for services. And I think that the one thing in this issue that I've seen people that ask us to do is they understand that there's a federal component to this. There's a lot that the federal government can do. But they expect us here at the state to do everything that we can do at the state level. And that's what we're trying to do, and I think Chip Rogers has been a great leader in that, and I look forward to working with him on that.
There is an issue that is now over in the House, and it was the governor's effort to see that faith-based organization could have access to some state money for running certain programs that he believes they could run more efficiently. What are the chances of seeing that pass during this session, since it failed to get constitutional majority last time?
Well, I was really sad to see last year that people want to demagogue that bill and try to make it something that it was not. When we look at what the most efficient way of delivering services, a lot of our faith-based organizations can do it better, and why not utilize them in being able to utilize tax dollars to the greatest benefit to those who really need it. And so hopefully in the House they'll be able to pass it, bring it over to the Senate, and hopefully we'll have a couple more members that will see the light of day, and we'll be able to pass that over to the Senate also. Unfortunately,
we don't have time for any more questions. Our guest has been Senator Mitch Seabaugh, the Majority Whip in the State Senate. Thanks for joining us on Lawmakers.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I also talked with Senate Minority Whip David Adelman. He doesn't give this session very high marks.
Report card. We haven't done enough to fully fund education in this state. Obviously, the state is hemorrhaging jobs, so we need to make some really bold steps to improve the business climate here and create more jobs. Atlanta's traffic continues to be insufferable, and we continue to look for some leadership from Governor Perdue on what he's going to do to unclog Atlanta's traffic. So right now it's a big incomplete halfway through.
There are a lot of kind of volatile issues still to come. One of those is immigration. Your take on what might happen with that issue?
Well, this is a very tricky issue, and I think we can all agree that immigration is not something that can be dealt with on a state-by-state basis. We'll end up with this crazy quilt of state laws. That being said, we really have to look to Washington, D.C. President Bush and the Republican Congress have really not stepped up to solve what I think is a very big issue facing our country, and that is illegal immigration. There are some things we can do in this state. For example, we need to crack down on the trafficking of fraudulent documents. There is a great industry here, especially in the Atlanta area, where people manufacture and sell fraudulent documents used by illegal immigrants. There's a good bill out there that I hope will move this session, cracking down on those types of businesses.
Also in the House, we have seen Governor Perdue's faith-based initiative emerge again. It was defeated last year for lack of the two-thirds it needed for constitutional amendment. Any chance that it'll pass this year?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to predict what will happen this session, but I will say this. That is another example of a solution looking for a problem. Currently in Georgia, faith organizations are able to participate in programs, some of which are taxpayer funded, so long as they have an independent 501c3 committee, so that there's a comfortable arm's length between the state and the religious organization. I strongly support the social services provided by religious organizations, but I also think there needs to be some independence when you're talking about the taxpayer dollars, so that there can be accountability, and so that the state can go and look and ensure that taxpayer money is being spent prudently and not being spent for purposes of proselytizing.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, Senator. Thank you very much for joining us this evening on Lawmakers.
Thank you, Gerald.
In other news, the House today agreed that teachers should be able to complete their online technology certification at their home schools. Representative David Casas explains.
We embrace the concepts of collaboration, open sourcing, outsourcing, offshoring, and supply chaining. Yet in the age of information dissemination and innovation, we still ask our teachers to prove their computer competency by committing large blocks of precious time out of their day and traveling long distances, sometimes across their districts, to take a 30-minute test that's available online. HB 972 affords teachers the opportunity to take the required computer skills online competency tests on site at a computer terminal close to them.
House Bill 972 requires schools to provide a proctor to monitor teacher testing. It passed the House without dissenting vote and moves to the Senate. Well, today the ACLU, the Anti-Defamation League, and the Georgia Rural Urban Summit gathered at the Capitol to lobby against House Bill 661. Lawmakers Lauren Brown has that story.
House Bill 661, in its original form, was intended to require parental permission for any student wishing to take part in after-school sports or clubs. The House Education Committee approved a substitute to this bill that would only require parents to notify schools if their student was not allowed to participate. Last week, the bill's sponsor, Representative Bobby Reese, spoke with lawmakers about the need for this legislation.
I just think the reason this bill is necessary is because just the busyness of the parents nowadays. It's not that the parents don't care or don't want to be involved. It's just literally a lot of them are too busy and they need every help they can get.
However, students, parents, and other concerned citizens fear House Bill 661 will create a problem where there is none.
I think parents, if they want to be informed, they are informed. My parents asked me what I was doing at school, and I told them, and that's good communication between the parent and the student.
Lawmaking, when they decide that they're going to politicize some kind of issue, whether it's a medical issue or an education issue or administrative professionals usually deal with it. When they start to fiddle with it, it becomes very convoluted and doesn't always make sense.
Although House Bill 661 was scheduled for the House calendar today, further action on the bill has been postponed until tomorrow. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Lauren Brown.
A program note, Georgia Public Broadcasting is dedicating 2 hours of programming tonight on methamphetamine problems, both in our state and across the country. The National Frontline special begins at 9 o'clock this evening, and the Georgia meth invasion immediately follows at 10. Representative Jay Neal, who appears in the documentary, took the well this morning to promote our program. We follow Neal's announcement with a short preview of tonight's documentary, produced by GPB's David Zelski.
I hope you saw this morning the announcement on your desk about the meth epidemic special that will be on Georgia Public TV tonight, starting at 9 o'clock. From 9 to 11 o'clock this evening, if you'll turn into public TV, there's some things that are important to understand and to know and to learn about the meth invasion and how it affects not just those who are involved in meth, but it affects all of us. My area, your area. Please tune in this evening to Georgia Public TV from 9 to 11 o'clock. Thank you.
I knew that I was in trouble from the very first time.
Nothing mattered to me anymore. I did not care if I lived or died.
I started staying from place to place, staying up 9 and 10 days at a time.
It is 10 times more powerful than cocaine. The base form of it, real ice, is 10 times more powerful than crack.
It's so cheap, it is eventually, give it 10 years from now, and I'm telling you, everybody that's dealing cocaine is going to be pushed out of the way. It ain't even hit big here.
Again, Frontline begins at 9 tonight, followed by the Georgia meth invasion at 10 p.m. on Georgia Public Broadcasting.
Well, the acting director of the State Division of Family and Children's Services today told a House Appropriations Subcommittee on Children and Youth that while substantiated child abuse declined during the past year, the agency continues to work with the courts to streamline the child protective system. Legislators were able to ask the director about cases impacting their constituents.
She signed a safety plan, and the safety plan said
protect his child, but the judge seemed to think different and kept giving visitation to this abuser. What does a parent do? They signed the safety plan. The safety plan said you will protect this child, but the judge says something different. I mean, what do you do? I mean, who are you accountable to?
That's a part of the complexity of our work, is that when the court rules, that's the domain of the court. We cannot overturn that.
Okay, so that person couldn't be held accountable to the safety plan if the judge decides that he knows better than your investigators, basically.
We can hold them accountable, but we still must understand that if the safety plan says you're not to have any contact, you know, and one, we need to work very closely with the court, because that does put a parent between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
If the court is saying, you know, open access, and we're saying no, then those two systems need to understand that their conflicting opinions impact the family.
DFACS will present additional information to the committee next week.
The state Senate today passed a bill creating a compact with other states to regulate certain insurance coverage. Senator Ralph Hudgens explains.
This is a piece of legislation that the insurance commissioner for the state of Georgia has requested that we bring forward. This is the Interstate Insurance Product Regulation Compact, and this is the model legislation from the NAIC, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. Now, what this piece of legislation would do, it would promote and protect the interests of the consumers of only individual and group annuities, life insurance policies, disability insurance, and long-term care insurance products. Property and casualty, auto, homeowners, those other insurance products are not regulated by this. It is only these four groups of products that will be regulated under this piece of legislation. This would be a joint effort and would only take effect when you had 32 states sign on to this, and they have to have an accumulation of 40% of the premium value in the United States before this compact would become effective.
Senate Bill 384 passed 46-0 and goes to the House. Well, today was Tourism Day at the state capitol, and that prompted Senator Jeff Mullis, chair of the Economic Development Committee, to take to the well with an appropriate prop.
Before I get started, I know you're wondering if I'm going to wear this hat, and I'm not going to wear this hat. I'm not going to wear this hat in the well of the Senate, even though I'm excited about tourism. So let me talk about tourism. Tourism is Georgia's second largest industry, and it creates tens of thousands of jobs, employs actually 211,000. Visitation is 46 million people in Georgia. Georgia's the seventh state in the nation when it comes to tourism destinations.
And later I got the chance to talk to Senator Mullis about legislation aimed at increasing tourism in Georgia.
Recently we've had a couple of issues. Last year we had Senate Bill 125, which was the Tourism Foundation, which allowed the public-private partnership to take place to help promote Georgia's tourism. So we've got a lot of things in place already, and it's working today.
And there was also a bill that was passed last year that could lead to a tax credit for production companies and film companies who come to the state of Georgia. Has that been attracting business?
Gerald, absolutely. In fact, we have a lot of the music and movie icons already looking at Georgia for future productions, and we've got some really great television commercials being filmed right here. So there's a lot of activity in that, and a lot has to do with the fact that the tax credit helped lure them here.
There has also been a new campaign for tourism to lure people to the state. I know you've been involved with that. How do you feel that's been working?
Well, I think it's a great thing. Have you seen the commercial? It's really outstanding, and it highlights all parts of Georgia, and we're using it, of course, as a magnet to bring people to our great state.
Governor Sonny Perdue declared today Georgia Day at the Capitol in a ceremony held under the statue of James Oglethorpe, who established the colony of Georgia 273 years ago this week. Lawmakers' Katie Eubanks has more on this story.
Citizens of the state joined Governor Perdue this morning to honor the foundation of Georgia.
And now I'm proud to officially recognize our state's birthday by proclaiming today Georgia Day.
the governor celebrate Georgia Day, students from the Georgia Military College also attended the proclamation presentation. General Peter Boylan, president of Georgia Military College, explains their role.
Well, every year for about the past 25 years, Georgia Military College has assisted the governor in celebrating Georgia's birthday, which we call Georgia Day. We bring a band, a color guard to display the colors, and of course a drill team.
Also to help commemorate Georgia Day, the official American copy of the Georgia Charter was on display at the Capitol for visitors to view and reflect upon the state's history. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Katie Eubanks.
Members of the Safe America Foundation spoke on the Capitol steps today to support Senate Resolution 785. The bill would set up a committee to study the expansion of trauma centers across Georgia. The foundation says the state needs at least 30 new trauma centers. They believe this could save the lives of 600 drivers every year. Foundation members also called for more driving instructors. That includes training 2,500 police officers. Currently, there are only 703. The fact that there are few trauma centers and a handful of trainers had foundation members calling for immediate action.
These issues are truly linked. At first, you might think it's an odd combination, but in fact, it's a deadly combination, a kind of TNT, because when teens mix with tragedy and don't receive proper trauma, it can be deadly if they don't have that care.
I'm here just as a face of someone who has had the experience of being an immature teenager with their driving experience and also in need of a trauma center in order to be alive.
State Fire and Safety Commissioner John Oxendine says his office will work with the Department of Driver Services to create training and trauma plans by this summer.
Well, before getting down to the business of the day, the House was treated to a special visit today from veteran Braves pitcher John Smoltz.
This truly tops what I consider my home for the rest of my life. I'm from Michigan. I've done a lot of things. Thank you. They're stuck with me in Alpharetta for the rest of my life, and I'm proud to be a citizen of this state with so much that's going on and so much at stake. And this room in general, you are in charge of a lot of decisions, a lot of important things. I get known for things as a celebrity that are sometimes unjust, and sometimes I get too much credit. And I just want to thank you from my heart to know that I represent Georgia now, and that everything that I do, I try to make a difference. I try to live up to the role model of an athlete. If to steal a line from Charles Barkley, I'm hoping that if nothing else, I can help raise kids and change the view of what athletes should be. So thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. I take this with great pride. Thank you.
Well, coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, the amended FY06 budget is expected on the Senate floor. We'll have that story and all the latest from under the Gold Dome tomorrow night at 7. Coming up tonight on GPB, be sure and tune in for that special on Frontline about the meth epidemic at 9. Then stay tuned for our own David Zelski's documentary, The Georgia Meth Invasion, at 10 o'clock. If you've missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, tune in tomorrow morning when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. Now stay tuned for Antiques Roadshow FYI. That's coming up next here on GPB.
And that's our broadcast for this, the 18th legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm Wendy Lawson.
And I'm Gerald Bryant. Have a great evening.
Good night.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.